Hey everybody, I hope you can hear and see me just fine. It's great to see so many people from so many places. We have almost 200 people who've signed up for this event. Very exciting from different places around the world. I'm sitting here in New York City. If you're in the area, please reach out. We're happy to get to know you. You're happy to meet in person. Um, and today I'm going to talk about giving Claude superpowers. We're going to share from our experience and from interviews and surveys we did with product leaders. And I'm going to also share kind of some cool things that we're doing at our company with Claude. I'll try not to push our own product too much. I will just mention a couple of times when we are also playing in a certain category. And then towards the end, I think, I'll maybe take an explicit 30 seconds to kind of explain it more. But this is meant to be really a useful, practical overview of everything you need to know to really make Claude shine as a product collaborator. Let's start with this environment for a second. So we have, this is Crowdcast. So I'll give you a couple of tips about Crowdcast. So first of all, in the center area where you see my video and the deck, that's our stage. So I sort of control what goes on here. You don't have to don't worry about it. You're not on it. Nobody can see or hear you. Your communication is through the chat. Everybody can read what you write in the chat. And so this is a great place for you to introduce yourself, share a LinkedIn link if you want, tell us about your challenges, opine about what I'm saying. All of that is great. So this is where the chat is where you participate. You also have a couple buttons on the side that are important to know. We have the Ask a Questions button, where I would like to ask you to write all of your questions, because then everybody can kind of vote on them and I can pick the ones off the top to answer. I'll try to answer all the questions, but we might run out of time. So it's a good place to save your questions. Also, chat kind of runs by too quickly for me to make sense of while I'm talking. So questions is a good place for this to live. We also have a couple of polls for you. So the polls are about your role, your level of expertise with AI, but we'd also love to hear the coolest thing that you've been able to do with AI just in the chat as part of your intro. This is always very exciting, and we're learning new things because AI is so new that we still have even OpenAI and Anthropic are discovering new things that people can do with their tools through the people, right? So this is very exciting, and it's very exciting for us to hear what's being said. This webinar is being recorded. So a link to the recording will be shared after the event at our WhatsApp community. In addition, there's going to be a lot of materials covered, including a lot of links for different libraries, different plugins, different things that you can install. All of that will be collated for you in a very nice document, and also will be shared to the WhatsApp community. The community is just a new community of makers we're trying to make happen, where it has subgroups for product people, for engineers, for researchers, for designers, to share tips around how to use AI and how people use AI. So it's not very spammy. It's very nice, and you also choose whether you want to receive those messages or only the big notifications from us when there is a new training or a new event. So. This is my spiel. I'll do a quick intro for myself. My name is Eran Dror. I am the founder and CEO, co-founder and CEO of Evermuse.com, which is an AI platform for product teams. Back in 2019, I actually wrote my thesis on AI safety from a Buddhist perspective. If anybody's interested in that, I'm happy to talk to you more afterwards. But that wasn't kind of before ChatGPT even came out. It was very clear that AI was going to be very powerful and very interesting. And it got me interested and kind of concerned about this problem of misalignment. So tech was going to clearly become very, very powerful. And it's going to take off in terms of capabilities and its impact on our lives. and humans were not really getting any stronger or better or more rational or more anything. And so that decoupling felt like a really big risk. And so this led me to start Evermuse, which is our kind of attempt to answer that and to use technology to actually make us better at the human things, like at the empathy, at the listening, at the creativity, and free us to do better work there. So that's a little bit of background on myself. If you're interested, I'll tell you more. We have about 1 hour, including questions and answers. I can go over if there's a lot of questions. And we're going to cover three main things. One is like, how is AI changing product roles? This is the big theme. And clearly it does. Two is, how can product folks use Claude to stay ahead? Now, this to a lesser degree, this also applies to every other agent like Cursor and Codex. A lot of the things that I say here are not exclusive to Claude, but Claude A is clearly the favorite of a lot of product teams, and B is ahead in some of these in extensibility, in its ability to kind of be extended by different plugins, different products. And then the biggest, kind of the highest level of this is, can Claude become a true collaborator in our product work? Can it do real product tasks for us? Can we trust it? How much should we trust it? What kind of guardrails should we put on it? And can we delegate some of our work in a way that's still fulfilling for us, right? So let's start with a quick intro. Product is changing. So a certain fundamental fact about technology changed. Coding is now at least 10 times faster. And if you look at just the coding part, it's just way, way, way faster, more than 10 times. And it's at least 100 times cheaper. And now that changes some core assumptions in how product teams and how startups and tech companies are built. The main thing that's relevant here is that product clarity is really becoming the bottleneck. So this is Andrew Wang saying this, and this is a bunch of other people saying this, including famous product leaders like Mike Krieger, who was the founder of Instagram, now at Anthropic. We have investors from YC and Battery Ventures. We have famous technologists like Guillaume Rouch from Vercel. A lot of people are identifying this core thing. Product management is becoming the bottleneck. It used to be that product was ahead of technology in kind of figuring things out and answering the question of what to build next. And now technology is so fast that product is actually dragging the whole team down to its speed, which is still a very slow human speed. And we're all using AI, but we're not necessarily catching up in terms of the speed of what we do. And I would say this is both good and bad, the fact that product is becoming the bottleneck. The good thing is, for the first time ever, the industry is moving towards a 1-to-1 ratio of product to dev. Devs are still being hired at a fast pace. It hasn't collapsed because of AI, but product people are being hired at a faster rate. And when I say product people, that includes researchers, UX designers, product designers, anybody who's on the more producty human side of the equation and less on the technical side. So there's more of a parity now, and that's going to continue. The bad side is that if you're slow to adapt, if you're not learning new techniques, you really could be replaced or sidelined. And I would say not by AI right now, but by a person who knows how to use AI to do your job 10 times faster, 10 times better, to do more, right? To build more great features than you can, right? And so this is the good and the bad. So my answer to how to do this, to a large extent, is to use AI better, and to use Claude better, and to use Claude Code better. Now, we have another webinar where we talk about Claude Code and using Cursor and getting into code as product people. And I strongly believe that that's a big part of it. But another part of it is we should really use AI at every step to support our human capabilities, right? So what are these steps? So the first thing is to kind of think about engineering with AI, not as a prompt engineering thing. You might have heard it, but a lot of people are saying, no, this is context engineering. And I think it's a cliche, but it's worth pausing on to kind of understand the difference. Prompt engineering means I spend a lot of time in designing what I'm going to tell Claude to do right now. Context engineering is more about setting the environment. It's more about making sure that whatever I ask Claude to do, it will have the right tools, the right knowledge, the right memory, the right context, the right access to complete that task to the best of its ability. And so I can, so actually prompts become pretty simple in that case. Like you might have a one-line prompt, rebuild this app for iOS, right? That could be, it's a huge task, but a very simple prompt. But it has the right context and the tools and the memory and the understanding and the access, then the task might be done, right? The task might actually be done successfully. So this is an important distinction. And what we see with the teams that we talked to about this is that they go on this ladder, right? The first step is you integrate all of your tools into Claude, just connecting all of these connectors, right? If you have a ticketing system, if you have a source of data, if you have like a platform that records calls, you can sort of integrate it. Then you start using it and you find things that work and you encode them in skills, right? So you write a couple of skills and if they work well, maybe you kind of share them with your team. Then you write a few more skills. Eventually you get to the point where everything you type again, you turn into a skill because you realize I never want to repeat this. I never repeat this instruction again. So that's the encode phase. And then the automate phase is when you say, actually, now that we have these tools and these skills and these this context kind of together in the environment, I can automate this whole task so that it runs on a schedule and I never have to even worry about it, except to review it and make sure that it's still running, make sure that the outputs I get are good. But I can start kind of doing things on a more automatic schedule. And typically these are the things that you kind of enjoy less and that where you have less of an advantage over an AI. Those are the things that get automated. And then you keep to yourself the stuff that you're excited about, the stuff that really uses human judgment. So this is the ladder we see. So let's talk about the building blocks of this real quick before we dive into the details, because we're not sure how advanced everybody is. So we have MCP servers. MCP is Model Context Protocol. These are connectors to Claude or any other AI that lets Claude use the tools that you already use, right? So if it lets Claude look at transcripts in Gong and search in Gong, it lets Claude look at Amplitude for analytics or read chats from Intercom or read tickets from Zendesk. These tools, you plug them in through an MCP, or a connector is another thing that some of the agents call it. And once you have the connector, the agent can use that tool. And it can use it both as read and write. It can add things into it. It can take things out of it. And it all depends on your permission, right? So this is what an MCP is. Very, very critical piece of this. So you go to customize in Claude. This is what it looks like. You can go into connectors. You can add a connector by just browsing. It has a little marketplace of connectors in there. You can search for tools that you want. And if you don't, MCPs actually usually come in as a link. So you can actually just add it as a link. Add a custom connector, and you can add the link, give it a name, and then it authenticates you, and then that's how you kind of add it. So pretty simple stuff. Let me move on to the next slide. For some reason, it's not doing that. Okay. Here's a quote from a product leader we talked to, describing another coworker. He just asked Claude. Claude pings PostHog, which is an analytics. It pings Slack. It just goes and does the research, and then it gives the conclusions, and then the human makes a decision, and going back to Claude again. skills are essentially your judgment, your skills, your know-how of how to do something encoded in a markdown text file. And it has some really interesting sections to it. It has obviously the title, which becomes a command that's reusable. You can just call that title whenever you want. It has a description that tells Claude whenever to use it itself. And the description is super, super important, because if you describe all the scenarios in which the skill needs to be called, Claude will know to use that skill without you having to tell it. And so that what makes skills extra powerful is really great description, and Claude knows when to pull it and read it and use it. So those are skills, and they are saved in the skills folder in Claude. Every agent is a little bit different, but very important piece. So just again, to show you where they live, it's like customize skills. You can create with Claude. You can write your own instructions, and that's how you get started. Very, very, very important to have those core skills. That's how you start seeing the real power here. Next one is plugins. Plugins are a little bit more powerful. Plugins are a collection of skills, commands, and connectors, MCPs, and potentially files and scripts, like actual code that the agent can run to do certain things, like the type of analysis of data, for instance. The plugin can contain a little piece of code, and you install that into Claude, and suddenly it's kind of an upgrade of what Claude can do with not just one skill, but a collection of skills that come from that plugin, a connector or potentially more, and a set of commands, and other capabilities that can be built into that plugin. So that the plugins are very, very powerful. They are only in Claude right now. As far as I know, there's no plugin capability in Codex or ChatGPT. And different agents are kind of building their own thing. This is not yet a standard. But very, very powerful, very interesting. So plugins also live under customize. If you go to plugins, you can browse the plugins that exist from Anthropic and its partners. There's a lot of plugins there that you can find, like Zoom, etc., Slack. It gives Claude all the skills and tools they need, the agent needs. And you can also just upload a plugin as a zip file. You can point Claude to a repo that contains a plugin, and that's how you kind of build the power. So a little bit of an intro there. So general principle here says throwaway comment is like, if you type it twice, definitely make it a skill. You can also find skills out there like Skillify from GStack that actually does this automatically. So whenever you encounter an error or an issue, and you figure out how to solve it, write a skill so that the next time Claude knows how to do it. And I think just getting into the habit of like, okay, we found something that actually should be part of the knowledge. Let's create a skill. So that's a typical thing. Now I'm going to give you a tour of 8 categories, and this is where if you already knew everything up to this point, this is the 8 categories of actual tools that can actually give you the Claude superpowers right now. And this is where we're going to do this. So my screen share just got lost. Let me try again to share the screen. And hopefully it won't be an issue. Okay, yeah. Yep, lost again. Let me see if I can do something about it. Otherwise, I don't know. I guess I can bring an iPad here and flip through it. But hopefully that won't be an issue. Okay, let me share an entire screen. Share. Let me see if that makes a difference. Apologize for the technical difficulties. This is the first time this happened. So now you see my little Codex guy, but hopefully that's not too annoying. Okay, so the tour, let's start with it. So the first step is like analytics and behaviors. So these are tools that track everything that customers do, that users do on your system. And you can plug it right into code. So you have PostHog is an open source one. It's very popular full click tracking, heat map, session recording, everything, and that becomes available to Claude to see and interact with. It's a very powerful MCP. Amplitude is a great analytics platform. Again, you can connect it to Claude. Full Story is another session recording. LogRocket is logging errors and bugs, and also session recording and behavior on your system. Mixpanel, obviously analytics. Pendo is very, very powerful across a number of categories, but including behavior and session recording and analytics. All of these have a top-of-the-line MCP connectors. When you connect them to Claude, you can literally start asking which onboarding step is leaking the most signups, what do the replays show? You can ask it like, how are people adopting this new feature? You can ask it like, which customers potentially are adopting these new features if you have profiles somewhere. And so this is a very, very powerful tool to understand what's going on without having to dig through the really hard technical analytics screens and dashboards. So we find the more and more kind of top performing product teams don't even log into analytics tools anymore. They just ask Claude about it, right? Voice of customer is another really important thing for an agent. And here I'm just giving a few examples. The examples are endless, but Gong is a really powerful repository of all your sales calls and sometimes all of the calls in your organization with some search capabilities and analysis. The MCP can give Claude the ability to dive into a recent call or even look at a couple of calls and kind of make sense of them. Intercom has an MCP that allows the agent to read all the chats, the support chats, understand what people are asking. Zendesk is the same with tickets. Dovetail is a research platform that makes the research available and the kind of annotated transcripts and kind of tagged transcripts available to the agent to get a little bit more, a little bit understanding of the research and what people are saying. And we're also playing in this category. Essentially what we're doing is to kind of process all of customer voice from different sources and make it accessible through an MCP to the agent. So we would be kind of a conduit to the rest. So the type of questions is like, a type of question is like, why across all of the calls and tickets, why are enterprise deals stalling? Or what are some patterns in this type of customer? What are some patterns of requests? So what are the top requests that we're hearing? And you could be like, why are people not liking this feature, right? So you could ask it for how people are using this feature and is there adoption? And if there isn't, you can say, hey, please look at the customer voice sources and tell me why they're not, are they saying anything? And all of this with a couple of prompts, right? Meetings is a big one that's separate from the other sources. So voice of customer could be anything, could be tickets and chats. Gong maybe more belongs here as well. But we have Granola, we have Fireflies, Otter, Grain is a Gong competitor. Just analyzing what people are saying in meetings, right? Evermuse also has a meeting recorder like a lot of these other ones, and it can also plug into the other ones. So that's another huge source, but only really if you can process it. So one of my big things is like raw sources are huge. If you just look at, if you have 100 calls a month and you look at how big those transcripts are, it's way, way, way bigger than Claude can actually remember or use usefully inside of a context window of 1 million tokens or even more. And so really what it does is it looks at a couple of examples and then draws a conclusion. Whereas if you kind of really process it, which is what we're kind of trying to do, is the processing captures everything. And then you can ask questions like, out of 100% of customer feedback, what's the patterns we're seeing, right? So these are meeting tools. All of these tools that I'm showing here all have excellent MCPs. For most of them, it's part of the premium package, so you have to be paying for the tool. But you can really ask anything, any pattern that's being seen in meetings, and especially if you kind of do some processing on them. And so this is an example of every customer call this month and rank the feature request, right? in Evermuse you have a daily report that you can create. That every day you get a report of everything we learned from the past day. You could do it weekly or monthly, etc. So systems of record are another great source. So these and these are maybe less sources and more outputs. So Linear, Jira, Notion, Asana, these places, Monday, these places where real work gets done, where humans and maybe other agents are going to pick up work, right? So once you've defined a feature and spec'd it out, you could actually tell Claude, okay, just create a ticket, make it high priority, assign it to someone, put it on this queue. You can also ask Claude to do a gap analysis or compare. So for instance, out of everything we heard in the past 3 months in meetings and customer sources, what is not yet on Linear, right? What has not been scheduled? What has not been prioritized? You can also ask it to say, okay, with the top priorities, do we have enough color in Linear, Jira, in these ticketing systems? Does it reflect our true understanding of what's happening? And you can enrich that description with the findings from other sources. So it's a very powerful. Just think about how every source you add is not just one more thing that it can do. It plugs into all the other tools that it has and creates a whole category of things that it can do. So systems of record, very powerful. I especially love the Linear MCP. So the Linear MCP, something we use every day. It just works. It just feels like Claude is in Linear. It can write Linear tickets. It can do Linear tickets, and it's very evident. It's very nice. So, for instance, turn this PRD into a Linear ticket, and add an acceptance criteria, etc. So all of this stuff is great there. Design tools are another great one. So probably a lot of you have tried the Figma MCP. That's an incredible MCP because Claude really understands the designs in Figma at a code level. It can understand them, it can manipulate them, it can design new screens, it can take a style and apply it to a code, to a feature it's building. Very powerful. But just think about how connecting to all the other tools. So you're just like, this feature isn't converting. Okay, look at the feedback from calls and tickets and chats. Okay, what's wrong with it? Okay, now look at Figma. Is there anything that we could improve based on this? Okay, create a new design. Okay, now file it into Linear. You almost never have to leave. And that's one of the things that we're hearing. I never leave Claude is one of the biggest thing we're hearing from the top performing product teams. Now Miro is similarly excellent. It can be an amazing thing when you kind of organize ideas, when you prepare a workshop, and Claude has the similar understanding of exactly what's going on. It can style it amazingly, can do it very quickly. And Zeppelin is another design tool we were hearing. This is kind of surprised me a little bit, but a lot of people are using Zeppelin with Claude to make the design a reality and transition into code. Very interesting. So you can sort of see, where does the code differ from the design? Where does the request differ from the design? How could we make the design better? All of these capabilities come in with the Figma plugin. Research plugins are, and yes, I will definitely look at the questions when I'm done kind of with the overall, but you can try, right now I'm keeping my eyes on the chat, but if you want to ask a question, make sure that I answer it, asking the questions. And sorry, I get distracted if I look at the chat too much, so I'm trying to stay focused. Research tools are tools that give Claude extra reach, extra capability to really do research, external research in the outside world. So Exa is an amazing MCP that you can plug in that lets Claude search and define exactly what it needs from the web. Exa then goes out, sends it feels like a million agents on the web, and it can return structured data. So literally Claude could be like, I'm making a profile of competitors. Here's what I need: name, URL, description, revenue, last raise, location. Claude kind of sort of specify what it needs, and then Exa goes out, researches the web, and returns a precise structured data for Claude to then be able to use in its work and its answer. Perplexity, very, very powerful research and web search tool. Firecrawl is a kind of a powerful scraping platform, but it allows you to specify certain sites and go and get all of their content in a usable form into a text form that Claude can use. And Evermuse also has research tools. We actually look at release notes and news stories about your competitors, and we can analyze them and do kind of give you new capabilities that your competitors launch, stuff like that. So that's the research part. And so this is like which competitors shipped AI features this quarter. What do they charge for it? How do they charge for it? Do they have do they have usage base? How do they price it? Do they those are all questions that you can that Claude could do on its own, but could take a long time. And if you want a more reliable and more powerful research than it can do on the spot, then you can plug in these research tools to power it. So very, very interesting stuff. Now there's a question of where you save all of this stuff. Where do you save all this data? And the data part is the persistent layer that would provide context to Claude across tasks, across domains, and it's essentially where you drop this data. So a lot of people actually use a kind of data lake like Databricks. That's a very sophisticated solution. A Databricks, a Snowflake, or a BigQuery, very sophisticated technical solution to just drop all of your sources in. It has some benefits, it has some drawbacks, but what it does is it's kind of unlimited. You can drop anything into it, and then Claude can sort of query and search inside of it. So our whole system, Evermuse, is actually based on BigQuery for sources and Google Cloud Platform for this big storage of sources. But we think that there's something missing there, which is this level of processing and queryability and kind of a more structured approach. And so Supabase is actually one of the tools we use internally for some of our business automations. And Supabase is really, really friendly. You can go up, it creates kind of a SQL-friendly database through the MCP tools and the CLI. The agent can just query and get whatever it needs from Supabase. It can structure it. It can add tables if it needs to, add records. So that's a very powerful way. Obviously, you need to guide the agent with the right prompts and systems and automations. But if you create an agentic memory with one of these systems, you can really store a lot there, and it can remain useful for a really long time because of smart query capabilities. Again, we're also in that category. We're trying to be kind of the memory and learning layer in the product category. And so what we've done is we built over BigQuery and Google Cloud our own set of tools that you can plug into the agent and give you kind of that living memory. But we're trying to kind of make it more of a complete solution rather than kind of a technical one, which is what these are. So then the next kind of category is, so this is an example, right? So, hey, what are the emerging feedback patterns from users, with low retention rates? Or we could say, look for all mentions of this word, right? Let's say, do people ask for a Jira integration? Look for every mention of Jira and give me a summary of what's being said about Jira across everything that we've ever heard from anybody. Right? So that's where the data becomes really important. And once again, if you process it and you actually have the pattern and the clusters already ready, that's even faster because you can even ask a vaguer question. You could be like, what are some patterns we're seeing? And then Jira integration could be in there. Which brings us to Oracle is another one. Yeah, there's infinite technical storage solution for this. Which brings us to memory specifically. And memory, there's different ways to think about it. Obviously, the most basic one is the CLAUDE.md file that you could put in your repo that tells Claude kind of the learning it accumulated, like how to do things in this code base. And then whenever you add a new schema or a new way of doing things, you want to add it to that Claude code. So it's just a file, right? Claude also has its own native memory. You can see it under config and memory, where you can add memories and Claude add memories. Now, I would say it's a very passive thing. So memory really accumulates very slowly, and not very aggressively, right? So it doesn't remember every call. Now you can ask it to go and look for past conversations, and it can do it, but it doesn't feel like you're talking to a person that actually remembers. So that's what Memo is trying to solve. Zep and Memo are two memory-specific platforms for agents. So you plug them into your Claude, and it gives Claude memory including associative memory to the task that it's working on. So it's working on something, and it just remembers the relevant pieces that's coming from this memory store. Now, Notebook.lm is another really interesting one. Notebook.lm, if you know, it's a Google product. You can drop files into it. You can drop documents. You can drop transcripts of calls into it, and that's another layer of memory that you can plug in. Notebook.lm has a great MCP. You can plug it into Claude. A lot of researchers I know and product UX researchers that I know work with that combination. They plug in their Notebook.lm into Claude, and it becomes sort of a de facto memory. And because it has notebooks, you can sort of instruct it. So you can say, hey, for this project, use this notebook. And it brings with it a set of sources and memories associated with those sources. So it's a very cool, very simple product relatively, but the connection works really well to kind of create a memory layer or a research memory layer. So Evermuse is really designed to be your product memory. So we're also, and there's a lot of players in this category of generic memory. We're trying to be the product memory. We're trying to remember pain points and needs and feedback you got, and whether people using different features and your customers, and what the patterns are with customers. We're trying to remember everything that's relevant to making product decisions automatically as you use it, right? And also from these sources directly. So that's sort of a category of tool. You can ask the memory tool, you could ask Claude with a memory tool, what did we decide about pricing and why did we reject usage-based? Or you can ask it, if it's plugged into your sources like Evermuse is, you can ask it something like, what did this customer, what was the top priority of this customer, or what were the top priorities of, all the customers from this segment, or what are the patterns that we're seeing over time, or is this pain point still a thing? Is it still being mentioned? Those are the types of things that you can sort of ask from memory. So all these things, amazing tools, worth trying. Some of them have a free version you can try. Skill libraries are another category, and skill libraries are incredible value because for what they are, they're just a set of text files, right? They're just a set of skills telling you how to do different things. But if they're really well written and with really step-by-step guidance and kind of really bring a lot of value, they can completely change how Claude does everyday things. So Anthropic's PM plugin is actually really, really great. I recommend it. Then we have Superpowers from Jesse Vincent. That's a very powerful component for spec-driven development. So it helps you through kind of a discussion with Claude, create the perfect spec, and then create the perfect dev plan from it. Very, very cool set of skills. Lenny from Lenny's newsletter and podcast has a set of curated skills that he's collected from a lot of product leaders. So that library is great. And Dean Peters is another PM specific, product specific skills in a big repository. Also really interesting. Gary Tan, who's the CEO of Y Combinator, has released GStack, which is a set of, it's broader than product, but strategy and startup skills, including product and dev, that are, and including kind of high level things like deciding what the product should be, strategy, that really represent the best learning of Y Combinator in a set of skills. So all these really, really worth your time to look into. Be critical of it. These are just recipes that someone else wrote. So you want to cook on your own and you want to let Claude cook with you. But take your time looking into these skills. We certainly have. So one of the things that we do at Evermuse is actually we have a set of 40 skills curated from a lot of these sources to try to bring the best skills together with our tools to kind of create a complete package of skills. So, and I think it's a never-ending process, right? So you always want to be up to date on skills. You want to build your own skills, but you want to hunt for great ideas. Just like before you were reading about best practices in your own work, now you want to read about best practices with agents and for agents and kind of incorporate them as they make sense. So these skill libraries, highly recommended taking a look. And so, for instance, you can ask, please create a PRD from my right PRD skills for top requests in today's call. So you can literally drop off a call and already have a PRD ready to launch. And then you can tell it, hey, send it to Linear or send it to Jira. So those are what these skill libraries can allow. And the cool thing about this, I would say, is, it's not that Claude didn't know how to write a PRD before, but it was sort of an average PRD. It looked at a bunch of PRDs on the web or something, and it would kind of sort of write what seems to be the most common practices. But a really great PRD skills or a really great spec skill is opinionated and it puts more emphasis on certain things. So for instance, or a customer voice analysis skill, can explicitly say, hey, you should discount one of our skills said, hey, if you're looking at a bunch of sources and there's one person that's very vocal and it keeps repeating in all these sources again and again because they're just very opinionated and vocal, then discount that. Just make sure that you only count them once, right? And so that skill, it might be something that Claude might forget to do. It might be very impressed by the number of people requesting something, and forget to make sure that you connect all the dots, and you say, hey, actually, this is all of this stuff is just one person. And so that's the importance of great skills. And this is a product leader we talked to that, describes skills as set and forget. It's like an SLA. It's a known level quantity. Once you wrote a great prompt that returns a great result again and again, you can just call it whenever you want. And it becomes much more reliable than, whatever I felt like writing in that moment. And I would say another level here is you take the best, the prompt that the best person in the team wrote, meaning the best person at writing prompts or the best person for that particular skill. You can have your researcher write a really great customer interview skill, right? How to write an interview skill. And then everybody that needs to talk to a customer can use that, right? You can have a technical person write a really great architecture review that then designers and product people, when they build a prototype, can use to make sure that what they're building might be useful afterwards or usable. So the person who knows best can write a great skill, and everybody can suddenly use it in Claude. So that's very powerful. So here's what the best teams do differently. They have a product context library, right? So they have a folder that every skill, and every time you use it, you attach that folder. The folder has all the information that Claude needs. It has all the information about your products and your customers and what they're asking for, all the transcripts from past calls, all the request patterns, everything that is useful to the agent in doing its work should be saved there as a text document that's easy for Claude to search and read. We sort of try to do it through the database and through our MCP, essentially the same thing, because it is complicated to create this perfect folder and make sure that everybody has it. But the best teams have a source of truth, a source of context for the agent, and they make sure that everything that runs, every time they run the agent, it has access to this and knows to look there, right? So this is by far the number one thing you can do to make an improvement to the quality. And by the way, the way to do it, just like you could add, you can add it right there in a task. You can also add it in any automations that you run, right? So by just doing these things, adding it to every task you run, adding it to the automations, and making sure that the skills refer to that folder and what's in it, the Claude just gets a lot smarter. What we're seeing is in these teams is a kind of a pipeline, right? You start with the sources, the transcripts, the calls, the tickets. You find patterns. Any pattern that's interesting to actually do becomes a spec, but the spec is informed by these actual sources. Once you have a spec ready, you make a ticket out of it. And then you have coding agents that go look at the tickets, pick them based on priority, and just implement them, right? Humans review at every step. So humans look at the transcripts. They look at the patterns that emerge from the transcript and decide what should we act on right now. Then the spec is, maybe you get a first draft of a spec, but then a human reviews it and makes decisions about it. And when it's ready, then it says, okay, go create a ticket. Then another agent can look at the ticket and create a dev plan, right? But the person is there to review the PR, to review what's been built before it is merged or anything like that. So that pipeline, the more streamlined it is, the better. And I have some details about how to think about it in a moment. But a lot of this pipeline is the core of what we are trying to build, is a kind of a pipeline for knowledge about what people are asking, that then becomes an idea, that then becomes a spec, that then becomes a PRD, that then becomes a dev plan. That's a lot of what we're trying to help teams do, whether through the MCP or through our own tool. So, this is another quote from a product leader. A PRD template sends it to sub agents. One digs into competitors. One looks at the data, right? So this is done through a skill, right? So there is a skill that looks at the PRD template, then does a whole bunch of different research, competitor research, data research. You can imagine, capability, technology research. You can look at other requests that may be related to it, research, and then you bring it all together and you write the full PRD. I think it's a fascinating glimpse into how some teams work. You want to have files on people. So you want every stakeholder in your customers and maybe even in your team needs to have a file saying who they are, what's their story, their pattern of request and what they're saying. It can be stored locally in your machine, but give Claude access to it so it understands who's talking to who and what's. So if you give it a transcript, how does Claude know who's who and what to make of it, right? But if Claude has the file that says, oh, great, Eran is the product person, so they might be opinionated, but they're actually not the customer. So I will ignore what they say. And the other person is a customer with a pattern of requesting this sort of thing. And now I'm going to listen to what they say from that perspective. That changes everything, right? So it's important to have these files on people, every relevant stakeholder. And CRM access is nice, but it's not enough because it doesn't accumulate knowledge about who they are and their real role and their real patterns. So there needs to be some processing here. And then another pattern we're seeing is definitely, if specs even still happen or PRDs still happen, they're very interactive. So a lot of the best companies are creating HTML specs that have embedded prototypes in them, or some of them have a very short spec, but a very detailed prototype where actually most of the front end code is already done. So what we're seeing is a strong movement towards the handoff to development being code in different levels of code, either prototype code inside of a spec that's sort of a minimal, or a prototype and a spec, or a full prototype, or sometimes a full feature, but just not as intelligently developed as it could be, right? So the engineer looks at it and says, okay, this is kind of messy code, but I understand exactly what you're trying to do because it already does it. And let me improve the way it's done, right? So these handoffs are changing very, very rapidly. And Claude can really do all of the parts of it together with you. The new type of spec, the prototype. I have a founder who said, I've got a personal software factory here. It's just cranking software. I just need to tell it what to build, and the whole thing is done. So that's a remarkable level of automations here. You want to put Claude on a schedule. If you're using Claude, Claude has scheduled tasks. It's the most important capability. So what we do kind of natively when you install Evermuse is you get a daily brief at 7 a.m. In your Claude when you install the MCP. You can choose another time, but by going into the schedule tasks, you can really kind of create what you want to create. And one of the things that I do is, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want you to get distracted here. One of the things I do is I actually write a skill first, and then in the automation, I just said run this skill. So it's just running a certain skill at a certain time, and it becomes very predictable. And if I want to change something, I don't have to go back to the scheduling. I just added the skill file. So very, very powerful, and there's so much you can do if you think about it correctly. So you can create a feedback digest that kind of gives you the evidence for what the top requests are. You can look at the competitor deltas based on news and what they report and what they launch. You can connect it to Zapier so that Claude can actually create the automations it needs as part of its automation. That's pretty advanced stuff. And you always want to draft first, right? So don't automate before you've tried a skill a couple of times to make sure that it works. Sorry, I have a lot of things popping up apparently. Okay. So always draft first and test it a couple of times. And only when it feels, okay, this is pretty stably returning the types of things that I want, then you can automate. There's a couple of ways this could go wrong that is important to remember. If you add too many MCPs, too many skills, especially if they start running over each other, so the agent is not really sure which one to use at which time, that can really create pollution, and it could make Claude behave in an unpredictable and unproductive ways, right? So make sure that for every type of skill, you have the one clear one that Claude needs to use. For every type of MCP, if there's a couple of MCPs that can do the same thing, it needs to know your order of preference. I actually have a skill that says, when I ask you for an answer about a recent call that I had, first look at ADIO or CRM, which has call recordings. Then look at Evermuse. Then look at Granola. So I literally have all of these. They're all connected, but there's a very clear priority of like, only if these are not available, go search there, right? So that helps with the pollution by creating priorities in a hierarchy. There needs to be a record, a source of truth. We talked about this this folder, but there needs to be a place where everybody can know that, okay, this is where all the truth, all the context about our product and customers and what we need to know. The agent will always go there. So that's a really important thing here. Another thing to remember is that skills can run code. So make sure that you trust them. Make sure that you read them to understand what's happening there. Do they actually run code? But don't just go in and install like a million skills and without knowing the source or verifying. It's very important. Okay, so can Claude become a true collaborator? So before I dive in, I want to maybe answer a couple questions, and I'll give you a chance to go in and answer and ask more. So let me see. Ari is asking, can you mention chat versus Cowork versus Claude Code, and if when to use each? Yeah, that's a great question from Ari. So it's actually pretty simple. If you're doing anything advanced that has to do with code or has to do with sophisticated technical uses of, for instance, local tools that are running locally on your machine, use Claude Code. It's better at this. It's better at the purely technical layer. For things that are more non-technical, blue collar, not blue collar, but white collar computer tasks that are long running and that need to be done reliably, Cowork is the right tool. It can't do certain things. So for instance, it cannot plug in to a local MCP. It cannot run terminal. It used to, it can't anymore. So there's certain things that it can't do, but it's better at the harness of connecting to all of these business tools, creating a task list, following the task list, and doing things in a responsible and predictable way. And so I would say most of our business automations run on Cowork. When you plug Evermuse MCP in, we recommend that you use Cowork and not Claude Code, but also not chat. So the only thing that chat I find consistently is the best at in Claude is deep research. So if deep research currently doesn't exist in Cowork, and so when you really wanted to search for hundreds and hundreds of sources and then consolidate it into a great report, that's only in chat. So we kind of use a mix. We kind of move between them, but I would say chat for deep research, Cowork for most non-technical tasks. If I need a prototype or I need something to do with my code, either an answer or a piece of work or to build something, then I would use Claude Code. So that would be my answer. Okay. Elad is asking, how do we avoid the agent's memory becoming too big? What's the correct size of Agents.md? So Elad, the good answer is you actually don't have to worry about it that much. The Agents.md can be huge, but Claude Code knows to not read all of it at once. So as long as you create really great titles, it can, and kind of sections with headings, with the right headings, the hash signs, Claude can come in and search for the headings and find only the sections it needs to read and then read that section. But that being said, clearly there's better ways than the giant text files. I think that's where the next level comes in, of like actual agentic memory, actual database access. That's what we're trying to build, and what we found is like a queryable database with a clear known structure that the agent understands is more powerful than these Agent.md files. But I think you don't have to worry so much about size per se, because Claude will spend the time grabbing and searching inside the file, and it would avoid reading a giant file. The problem with a giant file, just to say, before Claude did that, the problem with a giant file was they would quickly grab a ton of context from the context window. And that's a real problem, because agents become markedly less smart after about 40% of their context window. So they're smartest in the beginning. And so what you want is to keep it as fresh as you can. Try to avoid going over 40%. And but luckily with the agent, with the Claude Code, it can read parts of files. So that's the benefit there. All right. Hopefully that's helpful, Elad. Okay, I see some more questions. I'm gonna run through the last section. Is not too long. I know we're over time, and then I'll come back for questions. So can Claude become a true collaborator? So I think the key recommendations for me is like, the human owns the judgment. as much as you can isolate the moment of taste and judgment and decision and let the agent do all the rest, the better. And here's a quote, AI handles the blocking and tackling, humans get time for real vision work, right? That's another quote from a coworker. So the first thing to do is you want to distribute your skills. So this is our skill repository where anybody on the team can write a skill and everybody else can use them. And this is cross agent, so it doesn't live inside of Claude or Codex. We can just use those skills through the MCP. The next thing is to kind of build around queues. So this is what I said before. Isolate the moment of decision. So for instance, we have a queue of drafts of messages we want to send. The agent does the research on the people we want to approach, and it writes a perfect draft. It goes to a queue of drafts. I then read those drafts. I sometimes edit them. I sometimes change them. It's like, I don't like this draft. And then I approve it. And then another agent comes and actually sends it, right? So I've isolated the moment of decision so thinly, all I have to do is read and edit these drafts and make sure that I like them, that they have the right tone, right? And this is true across everything. Ideas for events. We have a social ideas for social posts, ideas for blog posts, insights that we're seeing that, are they worth acting on? As much as you can isolate that moment of, okay, the agent did all the prep work, you have all the information, you consider, you think, you make a decision, and then an agent is going to go and do the follow-up work. That, I think, is the future for the next 5 to 10 years. So hopefully that's helped. Auto eval and test your skills. Skills break, automations break. We have our own reporting system on when automations break that highlights when something goes wrong, and it explains what went wrong. Actually looks at the traces of all the stuff that Claude did to identify what the core root of the problem was. And I say keep an agent journal. Every recurring task needs a journal. We have a journal where every task writes to. So it says, hey, I ran this. I followed this step. This was a successful run, or this was a partially successful run, or this was a failed run, and the reason. And then the next agent can come in, and the first thing it does is read the last entries from its own, for the same skill, for the same automation, to say, hey, it's been failing a couple of times now. Maybe I should do something about it, or maybe I should anticipate it, or just to even know, hey, it didn't run for 3 days, so I should, instead of just doing the last day, I should probably make up for it and do the last 3 days, right? So agents with journals are way more powerful than agents without journal. And this is the journal is kind of like the easiest form of memory. It's like a short-term memory of what you already did. So strongly recommend having an agent journal. And then we also have auto release notes for skills. So whenever a skill changes, or whenever one of our automations changes or our flow changes, we actually have the agent write a release note to our release notes database, and that's something we can read. So when Zach, my co-founder, improves a certain skill, I just come in and I'm like, oh, cool, that skill improved. Okay, great. And I can know exactly what's happening with the automation. So that's a pretty useful thing that we're doing. Because we really believe that the workflow that you create with these agents and the context they have and the power they have is your moat, almost no matter what you do. If it's in product, you're going to do much better product work. You're going to launch better feature faster and better. Your people are going to be less exhausted and spending more time doing the things they like. That's another piece of the moat. They're not going to leave. And so I'm going to answer some questions now, and then I have or actually, let me give you the homework assignments first, and then I'll say. So if you're interested in what we have to offer, and we're kind of trying to create, you saw that our logo repeated a lot of these times, because what we're trying to create is kind of a complete solution. So if you kind of install the MCP, you get skills and tools and voice of customer, and we know how to kind of connect and process all this information and make it accessible to the agent. If you're interested in that, we're offering the first let's say the first 50, because we have over 200 here. The first 50, I don't even know Xcode once, but let's say allow. Okay. If you go to evermuse.com/MCP and you install the MCP, we're going to give you the $100 a month plan free for 6 months. So you get to experiment and use it as much as you want. Obviously, if you go crazy on the credits, that $100 includes over 1,000 credits a month. So that's plenty. But obviously, if you go over, you'll pay for those extra credits, right? But if you're going to go with this now and you're interested in trying, it's a great opportunity. We've never offered something like this this powerful before in terms of an incentive. And so now it's time for Q&A. And let me go back and answer the rest of your questions. If you have additional questions, feel free to ask them. Now I will start with this. Okay, Pratima asked, when Claude has direct access to query analytics and customer data, how do you guard against it hallucinating insights or misrepresenting ambiguous metrics? So first of all, hallucination is kind of an old problem. I'm not going to say it never hallucinates now, but all of the models got better and better and better at reducing hallucinations to the point where it doesn't really happen that much. The second thing is, like, when you plug in all these tools, it has something to go on. Hallucination typically happens when you ask it a question that it has no way of answering, and it gets very, very nervous and stymied, and it's like kind of a weird way to describe it, but it kind of invents something because it has nothing to go on. Typically, when you actually have great tools and you have great data, then you get really good answers. What we do to address it is we ask for citations, including in our own tool. Every claim that the agent makes based on our data has to come with a citation and a link to verify. And that link would open an actual video of the person saying this, or go straight to the source of this. So you can easily verify with a few clicks that a claim is correct. And some of the other tools do this, but you can also ask for it. If you say, okay, show me, prove that this is true. Send me a link to the data. Point me to how to verify this inside the tool. It would do it. Oftentimes, if it quotes something that's not true, just asking for a link, give me a link to a source that verifies this, you won't be able to do it, right? So that's the easiest way to guard against it. But yeah, ultimately, we are responsible for how we use this data. So we have to make sure that this is, that we're trusting it, and to make sure that we're going beyond just a claim. We go to the citations and the sources and verify it if it's going to affect all of our behavior. Okay, another question from Elad. When thinking of skills, Agent.md, MCPs, etc., what gets committed and what is local only? Okay, well, so first of all, Agent.md typically lives inside the repo. Skills can live outside the repo in a couple places. It can live in your Claude kind of local global folder. So it applies across the board, not just in a specific repo. It can also live in a team account. It can live in a shared repository. So, for instance, if you were using Evermuse, you could save it in the Evermuse skill library, and it will be accessible to everybody who connected it. So that's one thing. MCPs are typically controlled in a team account by the organization. So the organization decides which MCPs are available and who they're available to, and that's kind of how it's resolved. The way I think about local only is a little bit different. I think of local only is it's so sensitive that I don't want it up in some cloud. I want it in my own computer and infrastructure. That would be, so some things are like that. So for instance, a lot of the agents that have access to your code and can change your code live locally in your machine so that you can verify before it goes out, right? If you have, we have a tool for that has access to the database, the production database. it needs approval from me, it only exists on our local machine, and it has all these limitations, right? It has only access to the dev environment, for instance. So that's how I think more of local. We do have some skills that are specific to our code base inside the code base. And that just makes sure that kind of Claude always has access to it when you're working on that code base and doesn't see it when you're not. But I kind of don't like it, because if you're creating a different branch and someone made a change, suddenly you can't see it. So I tend to think that skills should live outside of the code base. Sorry, my throat is really dry. Maybe I'll drink something. Okay. Final question from Francesca. When do you recommend using Claude Designer rather than specific skills and connections with MCPs? Okay, so this is a great one. So Claude Design is actually, it's still in sort of beta. It's still early. And so they haven't fully connected it to the main Claude. But the regular Claude has access to it through the MCP. So Claude Design sort of has an MCP into Claude. You don't have to add it. It's just there. So Claude Design is really good at figuring out what your design system is from an existing product or a code base or a website, creating a really great design system document with all of these components. And then you can use that to apply it when you're working on a feature or a prototype or a design or a spec. And so what I would do now is, when something needs to look really, really good and consistent with the rest of your product, I would use Claude Design or Figma, but more and more Claude Design. And once it's ready, when I'm working on the actual code, the actual thing, there's a way to send it to Claude Code from Claude Design. You copy a little prompt that says, use Claude Design, use this design system, look at this component in the design system, and base your work on that, right? And so you copy it into Claude Code, and then you're good to go. You're actually writing real code with that information. I'm pretty sure that once the Claude Design is a little bit more mature, it will just be part of Claude, the core experience, and it won't really matter. It will be like a seamless, you do a design in the design tab, and then you can use it everywhere else. It will be more seamless. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I think this consistency and great design quality is where I would use Claude Design. Okay, one more question from Elad. Okay. How do we take advantage of the 6-month free offer? Is there a coupon code or something? No, there isn't. You are going to go to Claude MCP. Actually, let me update the call to action here to show the MCP page. You will look at the MCP page. It has instructions on how to add the MCP. And then once you've done that, just send us a message using WhatsApp or the Evermuse community, and we will give you that 6 months. You can also contact us. So Zach, you can write our emails. I'm going to put my email. I don't care. I'm Eran at Evermuse.com, and Zach. Yep. So just write to one of us. If you're the first 50, then we're going to give you that 6 month offer. All right. Thank you. Thanks everyone. This is how I like to end, is go build something. So I think this is the time. You can build amazing things. You can build more. You can build better. You can build more interesting. You can build, higher quality. And if your agent is smart enough and empowered enough, you become sort of a manager of a team just by virtue of knowing how to use these tools. And so I think there's never been a more fun time for me to build. I know a lot of people are nervous about it and fear that they're going to be boxed in, but I see it as the opposite. I think it could be very empowering if you learn a little bit about it and experiment and vibe coding and creating with agents are, it's one of the most fun things that I've done in recent years. So hopefully you get to experience it and you get to agree. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for being here today, and thanks for your questions and feedback. And I hope to see you in the Evermuse community, and I hope to stay in touch with you. Our MCP is, still pretty new, so we're looking for as much feedback as you can give us, we're really trying to contribute as much as we can to this community as we go. We're going to have these events every 2 weeks or so, for the foreseeable few months at least. And so we hope you can join us, and a lot of that information will be in the community. So thank you very much, and I'll see you hopefully soon.